Welcome to Parent Conversations. Today we are being joined by Tim Keady at the USU Extension, and we are starting a 6-week parenting course. You might notice that we have moved our time from 1 p.m. to noon, but we figured that since daylight savings time was started yesterday, that, hey, you guys, those of you that didn't set your clocks ahead were probably right on time. So yeah, kind of counteracts things. Anyway, we're welcome. We would like to say thank you to the few health departments that have provided grants. We've got Bear River Health Department, the Central Utah Public Health Department, and Davis County Health Department. Thank you. Without your grants, the parent conversations would not be possible. We are very appreciative of that. It helps us keep our prevention work going. So we're looking forward to this conversation today. Tim, take it over, and we are going to join you in talking about how to be a better parent. If you have any questions, those of you that are in our audience and would like to respond, raise your hand, type in the chat. I will be moderating. My name is Megan. I'm the assistant director with My Discovery Destination. Tim, it's all you.
Okay, very good. Hey, thanks, Megan. Appreciate the chance to be able to do this and be able to talk a little bit about kind of parents and children and all different kinds of families in between. That there's some have children, some do not have children. So we want to talk about this kind of in broad terms, what we can do to be really, in some ways, better human beings on our earth right now. So you can see some of the stuff we're doing here. I've got some of the connected discoveryfamilyadventures.com. If you want to look up that online, they've got a great website there. Facebook community, discoverfamily.fun. Obviously, there's some things you can do online to help reinforce some of these things we're doing. And again, spending time with your family is one of the best things you can do if you're able to do that. Again, my name is Tim Keady, part of USU Extension. I'm going to show you a bunch of strange things on the next slide so we can start talking about this conversation series that's going to go on for about 6 weeks. Okay, as you can see, some of my credentials of what I'm doing and why I'm doing this kind of thing. Done this for a while, probably 30 years, back and forth with part of the associate director of a student health center. Now brought out to Utah to kind of work with our communities out here and see what we can do to initiate some good things that are happening with Discovery Destinations and some other things we're doing across the communities. You'll see I'm part of an initiative called HEART, Health Extension, Advocacy, Research, and Teaching. It's an initiative that we put together to actually reduce deaths from opioids at one point, really what we were hired originally to do. We've obviously expanded that. We've been successful in training many people and doing some good things. So we're keeping that going also, as well as working in other areas kind of across the state and across our communities. I'm a Utah State University Extension faculty member. I'm responsible directly for the Cache and Box Elder counties. We include Rich in that also for the health. So anything that happens within those communities, I'm able to actually work on and research and see if I can improve those in any way, including people like Discovery Destinations, University of Utah, Utah Department of Health, just to name a few of the people that we work with on a regular basis. I work with substance use disorders and suicide prevention. That's my focus right now because of what we're seeing in the communities, especially with some of the substances that are out there. I'm what we call a harm reduction specialist. My goal is to get people to stop what they're doing, but do it in a way that's going to help them be successful. So whether it's stopping to use drugs or alcohol, using names that are correct. So we don't call people drug addicts, we call them substance users or substance misusers, or non-prescription users of medication. I'm trying to change some of that bias and stigma we find in the communities. I do naloxone education and training. That's one of the things I do, where we train people how to save lives with people who overdose with an opioid in the drug. And it happens with all different kinds of drugs. It happens to people of all races, creeds, ages, colors, whatever it might be. Because opioids don't discriminate. Whether it's heroin or whether it's a pill, can cause the same effect on you. So that's what we want people to be trained. We save many lives in our community and across the state with what we're able to do. And we appreciate the chance to do that for many people. Strengthening Families program, I coordinate that. I'm one of the facilitators for that. done that for a couple of years now. A program out of Iowa State University. So something we do in different school systems, and actually we're spreading it across Utah. We're doing some good things. And part of this program is going to include information from that Strengthening Families program 10 to 14. Because of the success that we've had with that, we include that in some of the information I'm going to provide today and throughout the 6 weeks. I'm also a youth mental health first aid instructor trainer. So I'm able to do that. I can train people on how to respond to someone with a mental health issue. Obviously, I work with Botvin's life skills, training certified for middle school, because that's what we're focused on at the time. But it's actually applicable to all school age children, as well as adults. Counseling on access to lethal means certified. That means I can tell people ways that they can do better to protect themselves and others if they have weapons in their home, without getting others involved that may cause problems for them, namely law enforcement or people that if they're worried about confiscating their weapons, that we can do it in a way that's safe for them, as well as for anyone else who comes into that home. I'm QPR certified, question, persuade, refer. That's for suicide prevention. I do a lot of outreach with homelessness, people who experience that, as well as veterans who are having suicidal issues, mental health issues. I work and do outreach there also. I have many different coalitions, including Hemp and Utah Department of Health memberships also. One of the things I did this morning, we're up a little bit early today, about 4 o'clock, to go out and do some checking on people who actually are in our community who may be experiencing homelessness. We go across the community on a regular basis, almost every weekend, and check. And we have volunteers that take a weekend, and we have teams that go out every month. So I go out once a month, as well as 4 or 5 other teams go out once a month, and we go. We have certain areas we check for people who are experiencing homelessness, offering them things like food, shelter, even just simple blankets and hand warmers to keep them warm while they're out there. So we do that. Now, I bring up some of these things just because I have people often ask me, well, what do you do? And sometimes it takes me a moment to figure out what I'm doing, because I don't remember half of what I do anyway. This is actually probably about half of what I currently do. I'm on a number of grants. I get asked to do things to help people that are writing grants, and also they need someone that has certain expertise. Like I have, I do a lot of stuff with Tooele right now. They did some work with people who had some substance use disorders. I'm working with them. I also do some stuff with Tribal Rural Opioid Initiative. Quite a bit of that is what we do to reduce deaths from substance use again, and also in tribal areas to do a lot of work there. You know, much want people to see a broad range of things that I'm doing, and that when we use some of these certifications, some of the information you'll find here, I think it helps us to have good evidence-based information that I'm providing to you. It's not just something I'm deciding I want to talk about, but we could do some of that even, but it's really evidence-based information that's going to be helpful, that is research-based, and we find it applicable to what we're doing in our work. So that's why I wanted to show you some of the things that I do. Okay, our objectives for today. During this parent conversation education series, we're going to discuss complex interactions that support individuals and families in living healthy and fulfilling lives. Evidence-based research will be used to guide our interactions. I'm kind of reading that to you because I want you to understand that's what we're doing. After the presentation, we're going to understand ground rules for the series, recognize the importance of instilling independence, kindness, understanding, and love in families. Again, when I say families, it means anybody. It could be a single person, it can be people with 20 people in their family, it can be 100 people. Whatever you define as a family is what we're going to talk about. We have specific definitions, but in some ways I don't like to use those because sometimes that's not helpful. And some people don't call themselves what they're classified as. And that's something I think that's up to every family to decide who they are and what they are. So we're going to learn life skills to kind of assist you and your family as you're going forward. Okay, so remember, this is a discussion. We're talking about these things. We want to encourage your input, want people to participate. We want you to be part of what we're doing here. Those of you who are going to participate online, I think that we could even have a discussion online if you have things that you want to talk about as you're watching. I mean, you couldn't make this first one. Please let us know. We'll put some of that information into what we're doing. The idea behind this is to have this really be a discussion and not so much me lecturing you or talking about things specifically just on a PowerPoint. We all can do that. We're all capable of that. What I would like to do is have this be an opportunity for you to ask questions, get ideas, and also use it as a group. I also do group, which I didn't put in my little list there. I do group for people who have substance use disorders. And that group, we call it a harm reduction group, but it's really about a living group. How do we go out and live after we've had experiences that are really negative, or been in jail, or had an overdose and almost died, or spent weeks or months away from their families doing because of some other reason, maybe possibly in treatment. So again, ground rules are going to be something we want to do also, but we want you to have input. So the ground rules, we want to respect the group's time, person, ideas, and families. So we try not to have people take up too much time. Participate as you feel comfortable. Be kind, show compassion, share successes as we go through this process. What's worked, what hasn't worked, what have you tried? Confidentiality of the group is going to be important, but again, we're just going to kind of talk to people about what's their first names. We're not going to get into a lot of identifying information. We just want it to be something where people feel comfortable talking about what's going on. Participate as you feel comfortable. And also one of the things we ask that you limit disclosure of sensitive topics. If you want to talk about that at a different time, maybe contact me and we can talk about that by phone or in person. So we can give you some good information along those lines. I do see people individually for lots of different issues and reasons. I do education, not any type of counseling or that type of thing. It's not my role here at Utah State. I did some of that back when I was an associate director of a health center, but now I just meet people kind of where they're at and we try and get them assistance. So you're welcome to come and talk to me about that at a different time. So again, respect, be kind, share successes, limit disclosure of sensitive topics, participate as you feel comfortable. The confidentiality group is important. If you're talking about something in general, that's fine, but we don't want people disclosing exactly what happened or this person did this when you said this. It gets a little too messy when we do that. Okay, so I'll tell you again, participate as you feel comfortable. We do have a lot of other people now that maybe you want to give us some information and input on what we're going to do, but we'll ask people, for example, what do we call you? The type of family structure. What's your family look like? Is it nuclear, blended, extended, non-traditional, single parent, adoptive, grandparent, whatever? Or just call it a family. I don't really care, but something that identifies you a little differently, you want us to be aware of that, that's fine. We talk about location, where are you from, and what you hope to gain from attending. That's what we're going to ask those that were participating. That's a little difficult now. We don't have a lot of people participating who aren't part of our group, but maybe we just go quick and have just Megan maybe just give an example of how we would do this if she'd like to.
I can do that. I'll share a little bit about myself. You can call me, my name's pronounced Megan. I've been called Megan my whole life. I'll answer to Megan, but I really know that you're my friend if you say my name correctly. So yeah, call me Megan. Type of family structure, it's funny because I am a single empty nester who is currently staying with one of her adult children. So I'm in the multi-generational thing right now, but that's a temporary situation. Where am I from? Originally, I grew up in Northern California, but I have lived in Cache Valley for half my life and consider myself, I love Cache Valley. So I'm a Cache Valley person, maybe not a native, but definitely I love Cache Valley. And what do I hope to gain from attending? Oh, goodness. Maybe how to better relate to my adult children and my grandkids.
That's great. And I think some of the things that you brought up are going to be pretty applicable for many people. I think we don't have anybody who's just kind of doing things what we consider the normal nuclear family kind of thing, where everybody just stays together and does that. There's lots of movement in our society right now. And I think that's a good thing. So we have opportunities to do many different things and work with different people. And thanks for sharing that, Megan, that you've done
You're
that
welcome.
with your family. So it's really kind of a cool thing to have that come in. And I think we have more multi-generational families than we know out there going through things.
I think especially with the economy, we see that a lot.
So I work with people who are trying to get housing. That's what we're finding also. You've got, if someone especially has a disability, we're finding that there's actually people taking care of that person with disability. And sometimes they may have a substance use disorder. And there's another person that may be helping them. So there's like a whole series of people from their family. So you've got a mother, you've got a son, and then you've got the grandson or granddaughter working with them. So it's not unusual at all for what we're seeing. So it's those amazing things that is happening in our community. And in some ways, other countries, multi-generational families are what they try and do, trying to get people together that way. So it's kind of a different way for us to do things, but I think it's kind of a fun thing to do in some ways. So I appreciate Megan, but also I can even do this for myself also. What do you call me? Call me Tim. Type of family structure, kind of a blended family. I've got people from different families that were together. I was divorced once and have a wife and that was married also before, and we married later. We knew each other. We were actually dated in high school, and then went our separate ways, and then came back and were married a little bit later. So you never know how things are going to work out. So the blended family for us has worked. I don't call my children stuff or anything. They're just my children. It's just always been that way. So just a choice that we made as a family, not a big deal, but that's kind of how it's gone for us. Where am I from? We're from New York. Came out here, went to graduate school many years ago, about 30 some years ago, then came back, was asked to come back. And now we're here. So I've been here for about almost 4 years, and we really like Logan a lot. So we're excited about the opportunity of being able to come back and do some stuff here. Now, what I hope to gain from doing this, I have to get more information about what you're doing, what you're feeling out in the community, what's going on in our community that we can help with. What are ways for USU Extension to assist you? We have many services, many things that we do with 4-H, for example, all of the horse people, all the cattle, all the fair, all of that stuff comes through our office. We have a horticulturalist. We have people who help with cessation planning for plants, and also for people. How do you have a succession of persons that take over a farm? So we talk about that even. So we have a lot of things that go on through our office here. So it's kind of a cool place to be, and we have good information, but I need information from people like you that are watching this. So we get better opportunities to give you the services that you might need and want. They're going to help you do well. Okay, so during the series, we're going to talk about some of these components. I put tentative focus areas because I wanted you to actually have some input in this. And we can talk about this as you watch this later on. Let us know what you think might be important for you to learn about. But we have an introduction to the series, mental and physical health, the importance of communication skills, what we can expect, common human development ways and whys between family members, loved ones, risk and protective factors, because they do drug and alcohol stuff. We have to throw that in too. I think that's pretty important when we talk about people and families doing things that are going to help them be successful. Then we talk about utilizing resources to improve quality of life. QOL is just quality of life. So how do we make and allow you to be more successful as a person, as well as someone who's doing things that are going to be pretty exciting, we hope, in the world. And I think as a tentative focus area, these are pretty good, but I would like to also ask people who are watching this to add their own. What are things you'd like to talk about? What things that came up to even one of my colleagues and I spoke about what I was doing today was the fact that we have the war going on currently, and how's that affecting their families and loved ones. And that's something that I've witnessed doing things as part of college health, having students that were having difficult times because of what occurred, for example, even at 9/11. We were there for that. Things that were happening also was part of an EMS crew and groups that were part of that, where I was one of the people that helped. It was almost in, well, you'd call it, I was a person that was doing the operations and managing our university's volunteer ambulance corps. So obviously you can imagine we had a lot of people with lots of different feelings just about that. Responding to emergencies at that point became very dangerous for many people and for us, worrying about explosive devices, even the people trying to hurt our own people. So it became very difficult in some ways. So when I think about what's going on now, what students and families and loved ones are seeing and going on, can bring up a lot of different memories and things that can occur. So called traumatic stress, whatever you want to call it. It's a big deal for many people. So we want to be able to work with that. If people have questions about that, we can talk about that. We talk about also adverse childhood experiences, which actually war is part of that. Experience that. It's a horrible thing to go through. It can cause some significant mental health issues, mental health concerns for people to be aware of. So again, we can be flexible in what we're talking about here. So if people see things or have things they'd like us to focus on, or areas that are something that you'd like us to work with, let us know. I know that Discovery Destinations does a lot of different things with finance and different things that they've done in the past with exercise, eating well, all of that is something that they cover. So we won't go into some of those areas of the general health areas because I don't think it's necessary. I think we've got a lot of good information on that already and have a lot of resources available if you need that. Just let us know and we'll use that. We talk about utilizing resources. Okay, so we're going to kind of get into some of these areas that we're going to talk about for the first kind of session we're doing. Kindness, love, and understanding. We're going to call it KLU. We're going to talk a little bit about what are social norms, kind of culturally learned codes of conduct, which is what a norm generally is. Values are sets of beliefs an individual has to guide his behavior. Talk about some of those examples across cultures are compassion, kindness, honesty, integrity, love, understanding, friendship, and many more. So when I talk about values and norms, I just want to give just kind of just a real brief definition of some of these so you can see what those are. Because I want to talk about just some of the social behaviors. What's going to go on socially? What do we do with people who are maybe new to our country that are experiencing something? We talk about kindness, love, and understanding. And in our minds, showing kindness and love may be different than it would be for someone from another culture, from another country. And we've experienced that here with just some of the people we've had from other countries coming in from Afghanistan, for example, Tonga, different groups that come in, as well as a variety of people from Ukraine and Russia, even from across the world that will come to Utah and sometimes come to our community. So I don't claim to know exactly what everything is that we should be doing when we talk about culturally learned codes of conduct and how we should watch out for that. But in most cases, I think kindness, love, and understanding goes across cultures. So I was going to ask people who participate in this, what do you do to show kindness, love, and understanding? What are things that you do besides hugging someone or kissing someone or holding that person close? Or other things that you do to show that kindness, love, and understanding? And then what actions can encourage kindness, love, and understanding in your family and with the people you want to talk about when we're talking about families? So what do you do to show kindness, love, and understanding? So think about that for a moment, and maybe if you're watching this on your own, write it down for us. Let us know what you do. And then what other actions can encourage it? What are things that you can do to change that? Maybe showing someone that you encourage it. You want somebody to hug you. You want somebody to come and hold your hand. You want somebody to be next to you. You want to talk to them about some of those things. You want to tell them, hey, it's okay if you want to come over and do this. And it sounds strange to do that, but in some families, excuse me, especially as children get older, they stop having that touch with their parents because it's just, it's not cool. But if you ask many of them, they'll ask you to hug them or give us, keep your arm around me, or it's okay if I stand next to you, or that type of thing. So the way you show the KLU might be different if you're from a different culture, but also may be universally accepted as something that you do. You bring your children together, you show them love, you give them food, you bathe them, whatever you might do, that's something that you do on a regular basis. And those actions that can encourage it, again, are things that are simple acts of kindness that are always there. Understanding is something that we know can change a little bit as children get older, and as our families even age. People start being able to have problems or start having issues with their hearing, with their health, medical issues can cause problems. So being aware of that becomes very important also. So I think we're gonna ask one more time. I don't know if Megan wants to answer this, but what do you do to show kindness, love, and understanding?
I would love to add to that. And I'm going to read something that Lori typed in the chat. She says, she help keep our house semi-organized, serve daily, and pray. I totally agree with all those. I would add listening, and know that you're not always going to agree. I try and let those that I care about know that, hey, we might not agree on things, and I don't want to be contentious. So sometimes we'll just have to agree to disagree.
Mhm.
And then sometimes I'm just a sounding board. If somebody needs to just vent, go ahead, and they don't necessarily even need any advice. They just need somebody just a listening ear. So yeah.
That's good. Well, thank you, Laurie, and thank you for giving that, Megan. That's good.
Tim, could I add something to that?
Sure.
I think sometimes it can be just such simple things as well. I had something happen this morning, so it's been kind of fun. My husband and I get to work with, in our church group, we work with the little tiniest people in our church with the sunbeams. And the last couple of weeks, we've been talking about kindness and just different things, different little things they can do to be kind. Well, this morning, so last night we had an opportunity to go spend time with our grandchildren at a birthday celebration, and I took my computer cord, and so I had to unplug it, which isn't a big deal, but anyway, I unplugged it just in case the computer, died while I usually work on the way over, kind of thing, and just not work, but be on my computer. And this morning, so last night we got home fairly late. I just kind of tossed the cord over to the couch where it would need to be plugged back in the morning, and went to bed because I was really tired. And this morning I got up, and as I went to put it back together, I realized my husband had gone through the whole process, had it plugged back in, had it ready to go. And it was the simplest thing, probably only took him maybe even, less than a minute. But to me, that was such a message that, oh my goodness, he thought about me, he cared about me, he knew that I would need that to be done. And so, so he did that. And I just think the little things can send a huge message to our loved ones that you matter. I think about you, and I want life to be good for you. So
I appreciate that. That's actually perfect. We always talk about grand gestures, right? We always see these things, especially if you watch Hallmark or these movies now. There are all these grand gestures that people are doing. And even there, they're starting to say, we don't need to do everything grand. We can do things differently. So I appreciate that. That's, like you said, it's as simple as just walking next to someone, or some people bake things for their spouse or loved ones. So there can be almost anything that people do, or preparing meals. How often do people prepare meals for their loved ones or people in their families? That still is an act of kindness and love. So I appreciate that. Thank you guys for talking about those things. Okay, because of what I do add some of these things just on the family's plan for health. We're going to teach a little bit about some of these things: drugs and alcohol prevention, substance use disorders beginning before the age of 18. A pretty significant number happen that way. COVID-19, we do a lot of work with COVID-19 right now, trying to do messaging grants and getting information out to people that need it. We're finding lots of mental health issues in our community members kind of across the board. So we'll talk about that a little bit. We go forward. Social skills, talk about learning to say yes and no as parents, families, friends, children, whatever it might be. What's appropriate, not appropriate sometimes. Societal norms and ethical or moral behavior. We talked a little bit about that already. We'll talk more about that going forward. Pro-social involvement behavior, we'll talk about that, which all that really means is how do you do things that are going to help within your society. And then being resilient, adapting well in the face of adversity, trauma, tragedy, and stress, all those kind of things. Because we do see that happening quite often. And like you said, responding becomes difficult for some at this time. We're going to talk about kind of quickly, just some core life skills by the WHO that I really like. We're talking about what we do in our communities, as well as in our families. What are some things we can do to help change what happens within someone's minds and helping them grow up to have a different experience even. So some of these 10 core life skills by the World Health Organization, with the WHO is designated as self-awareness, critical thinking, empathy, got critical thinking twice, that's okay, communication and personal relationships, coping with stress, decision-making, coping with emotion, and problem solving. So there's lots of cool things that go on when we're talking about some of these things, but I think some of the most important things that we want to look at with this core life skills by the WHO is the empathy. We do have empathy in different ways. How do we show kindness, compassion for others? There are some people who cannot. Some have different parts, sometimes the autism spectrum that can be difficult for some children and loved ones. So being aware of that becomes important. Critical thinking, creative thinking, and personal relationships. How does that manage what we do, interact with what we're doing, decision making? Again, we make a good decision. Are we comfortable with that? How do we make decisions? So we have to learn some of these skills. And it's not always easy to learn these skills. And we do have some handouts for you guys to look at that we can put on the site so you can have some things to try and do to allow that to be something that helps you to make some better decisions. Coping with stress, how do you cope with that stress and emotion? How do you do that? Empathy, self-awareness, again, things that we know we should be working on. We'll talk more about these a little bit as we go forward, in a little different way. Just think of these things as something we want to have as life skills. You actually can look up these 10 core life skills by the WHO if you want online even to get more information about them as we go throughout this process. Building family independence again, general problem solving skills for everyone. We already talked a little about some of these things that we want to do, the active listening, communication, being dependable, doing your research before you make a decision, doing an analysis of what's going to happen with that decision with your family or loved ones, creativity, decision making, and team building. All these are great problem solving skills for everybody. Again, we'll talk more about these going forward. Because we're doing this kind of an introductory session, we want to talk just briefly about helping to build independence with younger children. And we'll talk about teenagers in just a moment, but set age appropriate goals. What do you expect? Know the developmental stages of your child. That becomes important too. Create clear, simple steps, provide easy to follow instructions if you do want something to happen, or you're getting to the point where your child can begin to follow those instructions, which is usually between 3 and 5 years old. Something very simple, model everyday activity, demonstrate as talking, so talk about it and do it. Again, this is with children, usually under 8 years old. Use first then phrasing, the like followed by disliked activity. Give the child a choice. What do they want to do? Use encouraging words, talk about correcting with kindness again. So it becomes very important. So building into independence within a family. Independence and confidence with children and teens, a little different. Teaching accountability, choices and consequences are connected. Teach good decision making. Talk about making good and bad decisions. Help them build a work ethic. Teach about hard work. Teach problem solving skills. What's the solution to that problem? What can a child do to do that? Don't always answer that first. Let them help. Set boundaries, provide rules and consequences. Strengthening families, for example, calls it love and limits. Show them that you love them, but you stop them from doing things that are going to be damaging to your family. Teach money and time management skills. Help the child learn early those skills. Compliment. be specific and accurate. Don't exaggerate. They can tell. Something that we do find a lot of people talk, oh, how great this is. It'll be so great. Well, children just get used to that and like, it doesn't count. It's not, they discount what you say when you give them a compliment because they know you say that all the time, or it's not specific. So be specific next time and try it, see what happens. Nurture skills and interest. Encourage their talents. What are they doing that could be nurtured in a way? We talk about music lessons, art lessons, those kind of things.
Yep. Tim,
Basketball. Yes.
the previous slide is when this message from Lori came in. She said, empathy is hard. I'm constantly reminding family members to try and remember what they were like at a younger child's age. And she said she would love ideas on how to improve.
Okay, so people, for me, it always comes down to those, is there any problem with that child? Sorry, it goes back to more of a clinical kind of answer. I would ask, is there anything clinically that's actually causing that empathy to not be able to be given or received?
Laurie may not be able to use her microphone. I don't know, sometimes that happens.
It sounds like she's been typing in. I was giving her
Yeah,
chance
I'm
to
watching the
type if
chat.
she wants to, but
Oh, gotcha. That's,
yeah, that's just, because we have a little bit of time and she's there, we'll figure just take a moment if that's okay.
Yeah.
oh, Laurie, were you speaking?
No, not yet. She
Okay.
wasn't.
One thing that so last week was actually social emotional learning day. And so I was putting together, a special hunt for that and just kind of going through. And of course, all of our Discovery Family Adventures really are the social emotional learning. But one thing that I came across that I thought was really interesting, that's one of our adventures, was watching movies with kids and talking about like what the different characters or what the different people in the film might be thinking about, and just kind of teaching empathy through the movies that we watch and through whatever, and just really helping kids identify that way. And again, unless, like you're saying, Tim, if there's a chemical something or something getting in the way, then that's a whole different story. But I really liked that idea of, using movies, something that kids enjoy and something that they do naturally, to help them start thinking about how other people are thinking. Why, how do you think that person is feeling right now? Why do you think they did that? What was behind that? What were some of the emotions that maybe led to that? I thought that was really an interesting one.
Yeah, that's really good.
And Lori did respond. She says they're absolutely normal for the age. But her 12-year-old is borderline autistic. Okay.
Again, that changes a lot, but just for me, it gives me a little more information, because in some ways your 12-year-old is going to have a different experience than maybe the other child would. So I do like the idea, though, of having like movies or something that they enjoy. I know sometimes children that are autistic can have difficulty kind of getting those subtle cues from shows. So we always tell people, obviously, what did we do before we had movies and shows on TV? We had people sitting as families talking and interacting, and showing people what empathy is from that viewpoint. So people would sit back and watch. So I tell people at times to take your children, loved ones, or somebody, if you go to some kind of a family outing, we've got extended families that are there, and kind of the people that you trust, maybe tell them what you're going to do. Just go on, observe and watch some of the things that they do as a family. That becomes a really good instruction also for them. So being able to have something that they can do and watch from people that they feel comfortable with to start can be helpful too. So it helps build that empathy. How is that? And then asking those same questions, like Shirley was saying, which are great questions, is what is that experience? What do you think they're feeling? How did that child do? So after they watch that and observe the family that they know and people that they understand and love, maybe, then they go back and have those discussions separately and say, hey, do you remember when we did this? What did you think? How did that feel to you? and try and build it that way. And say, did you realize that when that other young person was hurt, we were able to respond, they were able to respond and help them. And did you notice they picked them up and maybe held them for a minute? How'd that make them feel? Then go back and start saying, how would that make you feel? So again, using that kind of modeling behavior, information that they're seeing and getting from someone else, and then turning that back and saying, okay, when I pick you up, how do you feel? And start talking about it that way. So again, you're having that modeling behavior and being able to turn it back into that individual behavior for the child, going back through your family. Hopefully that can help a little bit. We'll talk a little bit more about that, I think, going forward as we do. This is one of those things I wanted to see what we could talk about. What are some areas where I can be of benefit to you? Give me great information that's going to be evidence-based and research-based, so we can give that something that's going to be beneficial. So I didn't answer a lot of the question, I think, but just give you one example of something that could work. But then again, it's also a matter of, even reading books, right? When you read a book to a child, that becomes important too. And that's where a person begins to learn empathy in some ways too. It's like watching, TV, a book, the same kind of thing. How did that bear feel when he didn't have a bed to sleep in? How did, Goldilocks feel when she was in the bed? She couldn't find porridge that was cool enough or whatever, and trying different things. So again, using those kind of common instructional devices becomes helpful to help people understand what's going on with their children in all different areas, especially because empathy is difficult for some children, especially. We don't talk a lot about empathy. I think as a civilization, we don't talk about it. It's just kind of something we expect people to have. But I know that spending time alone, and one of the examples, I don't know if people do this always, lots of people do this, but reading to your child in bed. There'll be good and bad things about it. You can read in the chair, whatever works for you. But I think reading with children every day, every night, is a very important, powerful way to build that self-esteem, that confidence, that loving, caring empathy that they have, because they know that you're there, they trust you to be there. And sometimes that can soothe even children with autism, being able to read and have something that's, pretty designated for them to do. So the concrete kind of things can help for some it doesn't, but I always promote reading if we can do it. And if you have access to that, reading different books. And again, the child may have a book that they love to read every time. So have them read that book and talk about what did the bear do, or what did Winnie the Pooh do? What was that doing? Because most of those books are really written to help with empathy in some ways. So usually they're educationally written so people can understand what's happening in our communities. So it's another idea to try. So I appreciate that. I appreciate your input, all of you. So let's go back to the teens kind of thing, work ethics, all that, nurture skills and interest, complement. So we've talked about that for a moment. Something we can work on. And then, because it's kind of expected to have a few more people kind of input, but we've done pretty well, I think, with what we've got. I wanted people to actually do a little bit of homework for next time. So it's not a bad thing. It's just we want to look at some super smart goals. And these goals can have an impact on you and your family, increase opportunities for success. So I want you to think of some things after going through this first session, just get information that might help you, and just write down some of these areas that we could work on and talk about next time. So what would be self-controllable? What can you control? Public. So we talk about when we do things, we talk about, you guys all know what SMART goals are. Well, we do super smart goals because we think we're super smart, but we do them really because super smart goals make us actually be self-controlled, but it's public. So you talk about with your family or loved ones. When I do this in communities, I have community members stand up and do it to their community, to their groups. What are they going to do to try and have that impact for them to have a good goal that's going to help them be successful? What's the reward going to be? Could it be going to a movie? It could be getting pizza. It could be whatever you just decide the reward might be for you and your family members or loved ones, which is for you. Specific, measurable, adjustable, realistic, and time specific. Those are all things that we want to be as part of the super smart goal structure. But you also can just put down, you want to do whatever. put down something. What's your family goal? So do you want to have more communication at the dinner table? So kind of a specific goal. You control it. You're going to present it to your family. It's going to be something to talk about. What's the reward going to be? Maybe somebody else does dinner for the night. Specific, measurable, adjustable, realistic, and time specific. Make it specific and make things measurable. How can you measure it? Timing. We spoke at the dinner table for 5 minutes before everybody left. Well, can you make that be 10 minutes? Can you do some things that you can work on? Can it be 12 minutes if it doesn't go quite that far? Is it realistic? Can you do it in, let's say, a month? You want to try that. So having long lead times is helpful in some areas. Sometimes it's not. You want to do something that's pretty quick and get things up. Just depends on what you want to achieve with that goal. So think about goals, whether it's just better communication skills, less contention in the home, better opportunities for hanging out together, whatever it might be. Just think of a couple of goals, 2 or 3, that we'll call super goals for our series. Just think about that for next time. We'll talk about that when we come back next week. I have just wellness tips for the families. We're not going to worry about these now until we get towards the end. But I want to give people a chance just to ask any questions they might have about the super smart goals or anything else we're going to talk about later on.
I was familiar with SMART goals, but had not yet heard of super smart. So that's cool. I like it.
Something a little different. What we really liked with this is we have done this with lots of different groups, community members, students, but we talk about being public. The public act is you saying you're going to do something into the public sphere. So standing up and talking about it sometimes has greater impact on people than just saying, oh, this is a great goal. Now you've got somebody you have to answer to, whether it's your family, your group, your loved ones, whatever it might be, just something a little different. And I guess you get a reward. Most people like the reward thing. So
Yeah, I was just going to say, I really love that reward part because that really goes along with the prevention work that we do and that importance of the reward. And of course, a reward doesn't always have to be something tangible either, but that's something, if it's, it could be, like acceptance with a peer group and, and the self-satisfaction or whatever, that's something, that reward that makes it worth putting in that time and effort.
yeah,
So anyway, yeah, I love that popped out at me as.
yeah, and so you're saying you're bringing that in, the reward and self-controllable. You control that. You have that capacity.
Yep.
And so
I like that part
I like
too.
it better than just the SMART goals. Even I like SMART goals too. We obviously use those for years, but this is something we've done with many people, and they really seem to gravitate towards. Like I said, we do this with a group of people in person. I hope maybe we'll have a group at some point a little bit larger. When we do it with a group in person, it really can be really impactful because if people really thought about the goal, and you talk about that goal in a way that I'm going to do this in front of their colleagues and loved ones, whatever, they remember that for a long time. So
Awesome.
So Laurie has said, so could you walk through setting a goal for more peace, harmony, less contention?
okay, so for more harmony and less contention, all right, who controls that, right? So is that which member of the family controls that? Is it all the family members can control that? We're talking about when you make this goal, this is going to be your controlling that as much as you can. So what can you do to help that goal be successful? For more harmony and peace in the family. So you write it out. My goal is going to be more harmony and peace in the family. You're going to talk to your family about it. You present it to your family. What's your reward going to be? What's going to happen as you do this? If you're able to have a more harmony and less contention in your family, your reward is going to be we're going to go out to a movie, or we're going to get ice cream. That's the work because you like ice cream. It's for you, remember, it's for you to do it. So it's specific. So more harmony, what does more harmony mean to you and your family? Does that mean less fighting? Does that mean more time together? So think of something specific that you want to have from that goal. And how are we going to measure it? How do we measure that more harmony in your family? Maybe you have a checklist and you have to say, my checklist, I've done this, this, and this. People are being kinder, whatever, for a week. Measure it for a week, for example. People are doing this, this, and this for the week. They're being less mean, they're being more kind. Maybe they're picking up the table. Maybe they're doing things that you've asked them to do without saying something else. It is adjustable. We talk about always being able to adjust this. So for example, the children are not picking up the table every night. There's something else that might work better. It's just not working for them. Just something else you can do as your measurable part of that. And is it realistic? Can you really do this in the time you want to do it? So maybe you try it for a week first, and maybe the week doesn't work, so you go to a month. And you're trying to do things so you really have it time specific, but you're not being tied down to anything, because you're the one who can make those goals, make it work for you. So again, more harmony in a home is difficult sometimes to measure, but if you figure out a way to measure that works for you and your family, that would be a great one to try. See what happens. If you have trouble writing it as you do it, we can talk about it next week also. We talk about what we can do to make it be a little more specific, or whatever you need to have changed to make it work for you. That'd be something I think would be kind of a great way to do this, is have this be kind of the education and then kind of the workshop afterwards. Excuse me, I'm losing my voice, but that's what happens sometimes.
Yeah, Laurie, I love your idea of a family game night. That's such a great reward.
Oh, there you go,
And
perfect.
get the control that the kids can, control and choose those games, and that's great. I think you've got this.
What we find a lot of times are the children and family members, when we talk about rewards, a lot of people think it's always going to be about buying something or going somewhere, and often it's more time together. So that's what we find kind of across the board, because many of our families don't have that time together anymore. So it becomes difficult. So perfect, that's good. Hopefully I answered the question for you, Lori. We can work on that too when we do it next week.
Yeah, this was great, Tim. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, Lori, do you have another question for Tim before we wrap up today? Okay. If you're typing, I'll keep watching while I go ahead and close things out. Tim, thank you. We look forward to next week. Everybody remember, it's at noon. We've had some conflicts with some other important meetings, so we've bumped it back to noon for the foreseeable future. So thanks for joining us today. We will see you next week, March 21st at noon. Everybody have a happy Pie Day.
We're gonna go eat some pie. Whatever pie you like.
That's right. Eat some pie in honor of Pie Day.
Of course,
Save me a
moderation.
piece of razzleberry, guys.
I would say moderation always. But thank you guys very much.
That's right. Thank you. I'll see you next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye.